Matthew chapter 26.
Now it came to pass, when Jesus had finished all these sayings, that he said to his disciples,
You know that after 2 days is the Passover, and the Son of Man will be delivered up to be crucified.
Then the chief priests, the scribes, and the elders of the people assembled at the palace of the high priest, who was called Caiaphas, and plotted to take Jesus by trickery and kill him.
Not during the feast, lest there be an uproar among the people.
And when Jesus was in Bethany at the house of Simon the leper, a woman came to him having an alabaster flask of very costly fragrant oil, and she poured it on his head as he sat at the table. But when his disciples saw it, they were indignant.
Why this waste? For this fragrant oil might have been sold for much and given to the poor.
But when Jesus was aware of it, he said to them,
Why do you trouble the woman? For she has done a good work for me. For you have the poor with you always, but me you do not have always. For in pouring this fragrant oil on my body, she did it for my burial. Assuredly I say to you, wherever this gospel is preached in the whole world, what this woman has done will also be told as a memorial to her.
Then one of the 12, called Judas Iscariot, went to the chief priests.
What are you willing to give me if I deliver him to you?
And they counted out to him 30 pieces of silver. So from that time he sought opportunity to betray him. Now on the first day of the feast of unleavened bread, the disciples came to Jesus.
Where do you want us to prepare for you to eat the Passover?
Go into this city to a certain man, and say to him, The teacher says, My time is at hand. I will keep the Passover at your house with my disciples.
So the disciples did as Jesus had directed them, and they prepared the Passover. When evening had come, he sat down with the 12. Now, as they were eating, he said,
Assuredly, I say to you, one of you will betray me.
And they were exceedingly sorrowful. And each of them began to say to him,
Lord, is it I?
Lord, is it I?
He who dipped his hand with me in the dish will betray me. The Son of Man indeed goes just as it is written of him, but woe to that man by whom the Son of Man is betrayed. It would have been good for that man if he had not been born.
Then Judas, who was betraying him, answered,
Rabbi, is it I?
You have said it.
And as they were eating, Jesus took bread, blessed and broke it, and gave it to the disciples.
Take, eat. This is my body.
Then he took the cup and gave thanks, and gave it to them.
Drink from it, all of you. For this is my blood of the new covenant, which is shed for many for the remission of sins. But I say to you, I will not drink of this fruit of the vine from now on, until that day when I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom.
And when they had sung a hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives.
All of you will be made to stumble because of me this night. For it is written, I will strike the shepherd and the sheep of the flock will be scattered. But after I have been raised, I will go before you to Galilee.
Peter answered,
Even if all are made to stumble because of you, I will never be made to stumble.
Assuredly, I say to you that this night, before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times.
Even if I have to die with you, I will not deny you.
And so said all the disciples. Then Jesus came with them to a place called Gethsemane.
Sit here while I go and pray over there.
And he took with him Peter and the 2 sons of Zebedee, and he began to be sorrowful and deeply distressed.
My soul is exceedingly sorrowful, even to death. Stay here and watch with me.
He went a little farther and fell on his face.
Oh, my Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not as I will, but as you will.
Then he came to the disciples and found them sleeping, and said to Peter,
What? Could you not watch with me 1 hour? Watch and pray, lest you enter into temptation. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak.
Again, a second time, he went away and prayed.
Oh, my Father, this cup cannot pass away from me unless I drink it. Your will be done.
And he came and found them asleep again, for their eyes were heavy. So he left them, went away again, and prayed the 3rd time, saying the same words. Then he came to his disciples and said to them,
Are you still sleeping and resting? Behold, the hour is at hand, and the Son of Man is being betrayed into the hands of sinners. Rise, let us be going. See, my betrayer is at hand.
And while he was still speaking, behold, Judas, one of the 12, with a great multitude with swords and clubs, came from the chief priests and elders of the people. Now his betrayer had given them a sign.
Whomever I kiss, he is the one. Seize him.
Immediately he went up to Jesus
Greetings, Rabbi.
and kissed him.
Friend, why have you come?
Then they came and laid hands on Jesus and took him. And suddenly one of those who were with Jesus stretched out his hand and drew his sword, struck the servant of the high priest, and cut off his ear.
Put your sword in its place, for all who take the sword will perish by the sword. Or do you think that I cannot now pray to my Father, and he will provide me with more than 12 legions of angels? How then could the scriptures be fulfilled, that it must happen thus?
In that hour, Jesus said to the multitudes,
Have you come out as against a robber, with swords and clubs to take me? I sat daily with you, teaching in the temple, and you did not seize me. But all this was done, that the scriptures of the prophets might be fulfilled.
Then all the disciples forsook him and fled, and those who had laid hold of Jesus led him away to Caiaphas the high priest, where the scribes and the elders were assembled. But Peter followed him at a distance to the high priest's courtyard, and he went in and sat with the servants to see the end. Now the chief priests, the elders, and all the council sought false testimony against Jesus to put him to death, but found none, even though many false witnesses came forward They found none. But at last 2 false witnesses came forward.
This fellow said, "I'm able to destroy the temple of God and to build it in 3 days."
And the high priest arose and said to him,
Do you answer nothing? What is it these men testify against you?
But Jesus kept silent. And the high priest answered and said to him,
I put you under oath by the living God. Tell us if you are the Christ, the Son of God.
It is as you said. Nevertheless, I say to you, hereafter you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the power and coming on the clouds of heaven.
Then the high priest tore his clothes.
He has spoken blasphemy. What further need do we have of witnesses? Look, now you have heard his blasphemy. What do you think?
He is deserving of death.
Then they spat in his face and beat him, and others struck him with the palms of their hands.
Prophesy to us, Christ. Who is the one who struck you?
Now Peter sat outside in the courtyard, and a servant girl came to him.
You also were with Jesus of Galilee.
But he denied it before them all.
I do not know what you are saying.
And when he had gone out to the gateway, another girl saw him, and said to those who were there,
This fellow also was with Jesus of Nazareth.
But again he denied with an oath.
I do not know the man.
And a little later those who stood by came up and said to Peter,
Surely you also are one of them, for your speech betrays you.
Then he began to curse and swear.
I do not know the man.
And Peter remembered the word of Jesus.
Before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times.
So he went out and wept bitterly.
Mark. Chapter 14.
After 2 days, it was the Passover and the Feast of Unleavened Bread, and the chief priests and the scribes sought how they might take him by trickery and put him to death.
Not during the feast, lest there be an uproar of the people.
And being in Bethany at the house of Simon the leper, as he sat at the table, a woman came having an alabaster flask of very costly oil of spikenard. Then she broke the flask and poured it on his head. But there were some who were indignant among themselves.
Why was this fragrant oil wasted? For it might have been sold for more than 300 denarii and given to the poor.
And they criticized her sharply.
Let her alone. Why do you trouble her? She has done a good work for me. For you have the poor with you always. And whenever you wish, you may do them good. But me you do not have always. She has done what she could. She has come beforehand to anoint my body for burial. Assuredly, I say to you, wherever this gospel is preached in the whole world, what this woman has done will also be told as a memorial to her.
Then Judas Iscariot, one of the 12, went to the chief priests to betray him to them. And when they heard it, they were glad and promised to give him money. So he sought how he might conveniently betray him. Now on the first day of unleavened bread, when they killed the Passover lamb, his disciples said to him,
Where do you want us to go and prepare, that you may eat the Passover?
And he sent out 2 of his disciples and said to them,
Go into the city, and a man will meet you carrying a pitcher of water. Follow him. Wherever he goes in, say to the master of the house, The teacher says, Where is the guest room in which I may eat the Passover with my disciples? Then he will show you a large upper room, furnished and prepared. There, make ready for us.
So his disciples went out and came into the city and found it just as he had said to them, and they prepared the Passover. In the evening he came with the 12. Now as they sat and ate, Jesus said,
Assuredly, I say to you, one of you who eats with me will betray me.
And they began to be sorrowful, and to say to him one by one,
Is it I?
Is it I?
It is one of the 12 who dips with me in the dish. The Son of Man indeed goes just as it is written of him. But woe to that man by whom the Son of Man is betrayed. It would have been good for that man if he had never been born.
And as they were eating, Jesus took bread, blessed and broke it, and gave it to them.
Take, eat. This is my body.
Then he took the cup, and when he had given thanks, he gave it to them, and they all drank from it.
This is my blood of the new covenant, which is shed for many. Assuredly, I say to you, I will no longer drink of the fruit of the vine, until that day when I drink it new in the kingdom of God.
And when they had sung a hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives.
All of you will be made to stumble because of me this night. For it is written, I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep will be scattered. But after I have been raised, I will go before you to Galilee.
Even if all are made to stumble, yet I will not be.
Assuredly, I say to you that today, even this night, before the rooster crows twice, you will deny me 3 times.
But he spoke more vehemently.
If I have to die with you, I will not deny you.
And they all said likewise. Then they came to a place which was named Gethsemane, and he said to his disciples,
Sit here while I pray.
And he took Peter, James, and John with him, and he began to be troubled and deeply distressed.
My soul is exceedingly sorrowful, even to death. Stay here and watch.
He went a little farther and fell on the ground and prayed that if it were possible, the hour might pass from him.
Abba, Father, all things are possible for you. Take this cup away from me. Nevertheless, not what I will, but what you will.
Then he came and found them sleeping.
Simon, are you sleeping? Could you not watch 1 hour? Watch and pray, lest you enter into temptation. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak.
Again he went away and prayed, and spoke the same words. And when he returned, he found them asleep again, for their eyes were heavy. And they did not know what to answer him. Then he came the 3rd time, and said to them,
Are you still sleeping and resting? It is enough. The hour has come. Behold, the Son of Man is being betrayed into the hands of sinners. Rise, let us be going. See, my betrayer is at hand.
And immediately, while he was still speaking, Judas, one of the 12, with a great multitude with swords and clubs, came from the chief priests and the scribes and the elders. Now his betrayer had given them a signal.
Whomever I kiss, he is the one. Seize him and lead him away safely.
As soon as he had come, Immediately he went up to him.
Rabbi, Rabbi.
And kissed him. Then they laid their hands on him and took him. And one of those who stood by drew his sword and struck the servant of the high priest and cut off his ear. Then Jesus answered and said to them,
Have you come out as against a robber, with swords and clubs to take me? I was daily with you in the temple teaching, and you did not seize me. But the scriptures must be fulfilled.
Then they all forsook him and fled. Now, a certain young man followed him, having a linen cloth thrown around his naked body. And the young men laid hold of him, and he left the linen cloth and fled from them naked. And they led Jesus away to the high priest, and with him were assembled all the chief priests, the elders, and the scribes. But Peter followed him at a distance, right into the courtyard of the high priest. And he sat with the servants and warmed himself at the fire. Now the chief priests and all the council sought testimony against Jesus to put him to death, but found none. For many bore false witness against him, but their testimonies did not agree. Then some rose up and bore false witness against him.
We heard him say, I will destroy this temple made with hands, and within 3 days I will build another made without hands.
But not even then did their testimony agree. And the high priest stood up in the midst and asked Jesus,
Do you answer nothing? What is it these men testify against you?
But he kept silent and answered nothing. Again the high priest asked him,
Are you the Christ, the Son of the Blessed?
I am. And you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the power, and coming with the clouds of heaven.
Then the high priest tore his clothes.
What further need do we have of witnesses? You have heard the blasphemy. What do you think?
And they all condemned him to be deserving of death. Then some began to spit on him, and to blindfold him, and to beat him.
Prophesy!
And the officers struck him with the palms of their hands. Now as Peter was below in the courtyard, one of the servant girls of the high priest came. And when she saw Peter warming himself, she looked at him and said,
You also were with Jesus of Nazareth.
I neither know nor understand what you are saying.
And he went out on the porch, and a rooster crowed. And the servant girl saw him again, and began to say to those who stood by,
This is one of them.
But he denied it again. And a little later, those who stood by said to Peter again,
Surely you are one of them, for you are a Galilean and your speech shows it.
Then he began to curse and swear,
I do not know this man of whom you speak.
A second time, the rooster crowed. Then Peter called to mind the word that Jesus had said to him.
Before the rooster crows twice, you will deny me 3 times.
And when he thought about it, he wept.